Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Pinocchio in 1940. So yes, the second Disney animated feature film, and here we are with this wonderful steelbook. Just look at that, of course. The back, Gepetto on there, and then the inside artwork, wonderful stuff as well. Really recommend this. It's probably a bit more expensive now, but I got these back probably 2014 actually, 2015. I got a bunch of these ones. Savvy and stuff, and they're wonderful steelbooks. Yes, the second, of course, Disney animated feature film, once again produced by Walt Disney, and of course, just a few years after Snow White, which was 37. So yes, the second one, very very popular film. Although it's not loved by everyone. And of course it was quite a kind of box office failing really. At the time, but then it did grow over the years, stature is one of them, of course. Snow White was instantly, loved and successful, but this one was a bit less so. So yes, of course, very, very famous film. I'm pretty sure everyone's seen this, or most people, but if you haven't seen it, yes, very, very basic story is Gepetto is a wood carver kind of thing, and he of course, you see him making this, or you see he's got a puppet, and yes, he basically wishes, he looks up to the star, and he wishes, of course, that one day it become a real boy, of course, Pinocchio. And yes, very early on as well, of course, Jiminy Cricket basically becomes the conscience of Pinocchio. So yes, once this story sets in motion, it's kind of an adventure film. It's a film about it is teaching kids lessons, and of course, there's very, very dark themes in this film, but it's really a tale about innocence, childhood, father-son relationship. I think it's just so powerful in that sense, and it's just there's so many, so much stuff here that's packed into this film. Really, really, just wonderful tale. Of course, the story is from the 19th century, and yes, of course, this film is now ranked among the kind of the best animated films. Quite a lot of critics would say this is the best animated film of all time. It has actually a 99 on Metacritic, which is literally one of the highest rated films on that. Rotten Tomatoes, I think it still has 100, which is very rare. A bit less on IMDb. As I say, a lot of these Golden Age ones, none of them got 8. But I think the Golden Age is definitely the original 5. Some debate whether the package era is also part of the. I couldn't consider that. The wartime ones, but the original 5, the true Golden Age ones. This is my favourite era overall. I think they're all great films, and I did say, of course, the ones I hadn't reviewed, after I reviewed Fantasia and Dumbo, were all masterpieces. No exception here. Of course, this is one of the masterpieces, and for me, one of the best films ever made in the history of cinema. I think certainly so. This is very, very close to my top 100 films. It's that good. I think definitely one of the very best Disney films. And yes, literally one of my top 5 Disney films. It's either number 4 or 5. It could be number 4 definitely. Of all the Disney films that I've seen, it's not the best. I don't think that, and I don't think it's the best of the Golden Age. So yes, I did say before, on my other reviews, where my highest, the ones I love the most are the Golden Age, where they are, the top 2 on my favourite films list. Check out my Fantasia review for that. But yes, this is not, one of them 2 films. This is definitely close to my top 100. But them other 2 films I did say, in my top 50, which of course are Snow White and Bambi. They're definitely the best for me. The Golden Age. See what I prefer, of course, when I do my reviews of them, / my rankings. And yes, this film, is just perfect in every sense. It really is something else. Wonderful story that's just, perfectly brought to the screen. As a piece of cinema, this is mesmerising. It's very, very joyous at first, and some of the ending, of course. These characters, Gepetto, is just such a great character, a warm, it's kind of sad at times. He's kind of a lonely character. He's with his cat, Figaro, of course, and his goldfish Cleo, and of course he longs to basically. It's clear he longs to have a kid, basically, and through his his work, he kind of wants to bring this this puppet alive. And yes, of course, as everyone knows, it does happen, kind of in many ways. And yes, this is just a wonderful tale. The first sort of half an hour is just a perfect setup to this world. The charm is just it's so perfectly portrayed here. It's just such a wonderful film. Of course, the Blue Fairy when she comes into it. This is really these early films from Disney of some of the greatest fantasy works. Just the way it transports you, the sense of wonder, and it's to do with the animation. I think actually a lot of the time when is not in many ways the animation is a bit more simpler and stuff, but it's actually better for me a lot of the time. It actually has a greater sense of wonder and atmosphere, and I think just the actual what they're doing with the colours and just the overall feel of these worlds that they're creating through the animation is actually for me greater than most animated films. It just really is. It's just perfect. It's actually like you're in a fable, which is just the key for telling this type of story. Snow White as well, of course. It transports you. It feels more fantastical. And this is kind of it's an adventure film in the second half, certainly. But most of the first sort of 30 minutes is in this house and around the house. It's just the perfect setup. You get to know these characters, and of course it's just so joyous. It's hilarious, of course. The script, all this kind of stuff. It's perfect. It really is. The exposition to all these characters, and just I love the voice acting. It's just wonderful animation, and just creative sequences. No doubt. This is genius stuff here, and it sets up this story wonderfully. And then of course, it takes a bit of a darker turn. Of course, this fox basically entices Pinocchio. This is a film about temptations and stuff, of course, and there is many messages in there, and of course, very, very dark ones, but of course it's done in the most kind of upbeat way, to kind of, not appear as a kind of dark film, but of course, underlying very complex, themes, and of course, important messages, for sure, but yes, it takes a dark turn. Pinocchio basically gets taken away, of course, Stromboli, of course, you find out that he has all these kids, of course, and he tries to exploit them. Of course, you've got all these other villains. Very, very dark stuff there, that whole sequence, but it's just genius stuff. And of course, you've got the final act, which is basically, of course, the whale, Monstro, and of course the ending, which is just one of the most beautiful moments in cinema. But this whole ending sequence, the action, this is genius stuff. It's layered. It's so perfectly the flow of it, and of course just the how thrilling this is, and kind of how it keeps you on the edge of your seat, the tension, of course the ways that it kind of incorporate the fact that they're inside the whale, it's just genius stuff. It's basically it's just perfect in every sense. The final act is so thrilling, and then it has the ending which really is just wonderful. Of course the way it comes together is truly beautiful. Of course, I think Fantasia kind of lacked, because it was a collection of shorts really, so it lacked the kind of the ending, that really comes together, because it's not really, an actual full-length film, a narrative as such, and it's the only one of the originals that doesn't have an ending that kind of really, really moves me. This film really moves me, of course. It's spiritual. It's just a wonderful film, a warm film, full of heart and passion, no doubt. And it's really about family. It's very family based, of course, father-son sort of relationship, and about dreams coming true, of course. It's just such a hopeful film, but of course, very, very dark. Disney, not afraid to kind of go really, really dark here, of course. Snow White is not really, it's not really about that. It's not too dark, or it has got its moments. But this one is definitely more sinister in moments, of course, and very, very disturbing. It's one of the greatest kind of horror sequences is that kind of the donkey scene. What I'm on about if you've seen the film. But yeah, it's just very, very disturbing. But it's got the balance between that and the kind of joyous moments. You've got the first half an hour really is all kind of just upbeat and kind of just so wonderful, so whimsical. Of course, and Gepetto, the relationship between him and Figaro, and of course Pinocchio. It's just great stuff. It's just wonderful. It really, really moved me. Of course, I've seen this, well over 20 times now, and It's one of the best films ever made, in my opinion. The animation is absolutely flawless. Again, leaves a sense of wonder there as well. It's just infused with this atmosphere. Really, really, just fantastical atmosphere. It's kind of sometimes you can compare animation, when it's at times more simplistic, not lesser, of course, to film, between film and digital at times, where actually I do prefer it, to kind of the modern look, CGI, not always, but yeah, I think definitely it's perfect for a film like this, the kind of fable nature it has, and it just kind of, it transports me to this world, and of course, great characters, grounded characters, and then of course you get whisked away, of course, and the adventure feel this film has, how upbeat it is at times, combined with that dark edge, just makes for such a wonderful film. This film, the music, it's perfect. Of course, won an Oscar, of course. A couple of Oscars here, of course, for When You Wish Upon a Star. Of course, Disney using this, as the kind of main theme and the opening, the kind of thing. And yes, you can see why it's one of the best Disney songs, and I just think all the music throughout the film, of course, it's more of a musical, kind of in the first half, and then it's not so much. But all the music used in the film is absolutely flawless, and of course, it moves the story forward while also just being so enjoyable in its own right. And just yes, I think every single act of this film is perfect, and of course, I have to give this film full marks. As I said, it's very close to my top 100 full time, which is some feat. I think that it's the third best of the Golden Age, but it's very close to my top 100. That shows how much love I have, for the Golden Age, and of course, it gets a plus tier, and it's very close to my tier 1s, but not quite in there. 100% plus, tier 2, yes, very close to the tier 1s, not quite in there. Just shy of my top 100, but this film is one of my most loved films, of course. It's just means so much to me. It's such a perfect and pure film, a work of fantasy. It's a film that's just got so much atmosphere. The whole locations and everything is perfect in the film. The animation has rarely been bettered. Really, I think it's just a wonderful piece of cinema. How moving it is, the warm feelings that I get from it. The kind of the joyous feel. When they're all together. Gepetto is just. He's such a great character. I felt so much for, what his motivations, and just very, it's very kind of sympathetic character at times. Just is very moving and touching, and of course, it's a very hopeful film. Also, as I say, really exploring some dark themes. Of course, it's got many important messages in the film. Of course, and Pinocchio, of course, yes, one of the greatest characters in a Disney film. I just loved all these side characters as well, like Cleo and Figaro the cat, of course, just brilliant, so cute, of course, and charming, and great comedy in there. This is some masterful comedy in the film. I think when they're all together early on, especially, it's just hilarious, and then of course, it's got the perfect blend of every single kind of thing you want from an animated film. The adventure spirit that the film has. And yes, just the kind of the family kind of friendship values the film has. It's just such a wonderful film, of course, about Pinocchio who wants to be a real boy, and of course Gepetto who wants, of course, this to happen as well. And it's kind of, they both, of course, kind of hope for these two things. Things get in the way, but it's just it's pretty short again, once again, but it's just a wonderful film that just satisfies me on every level, and it really is a moving spiritual film, wonderful work of cinema, the colours, just everything in the animation, and of course, as I was saying, the sense of wonder and atmosphere, this is really what a true fantasy animation piece is, and it's just really something else, these things that you can relate to, all these things about childhood, and all this kind of stuff. It's just a wonderful film, absolutely flawless, of course. I can understand how some people would say this is the best. It's not my favourite, but I can certainly understand that. I love this so much. I adore this film. If you've not seen it, for whatever reason, never too late to start. Watch the film, of course. Tell me what you think in the comments. But I'm guessing most people have seen the film, of course. And yes, tell me what you think. Personally, I think it is a flawless masterpiece, one of the greatest films ever made. So many memories, of course. It's such a nostalgic film. But yes, just a perfect piece of cinema art for me. Some people don't think it's great, but mostly, especially critics, would say this is either the best or one of the very best films in, of course, the Disney canon. And yes, I think, of course, next up will likely be Snow White, going back to the original, of course, and then we'll do Bambi. In terms of these Disney films, I feel. And yes, of course, massively look forward to reviewing them. Of course, if you watch this whole review, you'll know that they're in my top 50, both of these films. Find out which I prefer and crown as the greatest of the golden age. When I get to them reviews, I will probably mention in them reviews how I feel. What is the best, of course, and yes, maybe controversial picks for the greatest the golden age. But yes, just my opinions, of course. But for me, yes, Pinocchio, one of the greatest films ever made, and just highly recommend it, of course, if you've not seen it. And yes, if you have, of course, tell me what you think in the comments. And yes, thanks for watching my review.